Good morning. Thank you all for coming. I'm Paul Casani, the SDMAC president for 2015. Welcome to the rollout press conference for the 7th annual SDMAC Military Economic Impact Study. Before we begin, I would like to thank SeaWorld San Diego for their support sponsoring this press conference and also for their support with the year's study. With us this morning is Mr. Dave Kuntz, Director of Communications at SeaWorld San Diego, whom I would like to invite to the podium for a few words. Dave?
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Larry, and the entire SDMAC for your just tremendous support of our military here in San Diego. As retired Navy, I know very, very well the importance of the Navy and the Marine Corps to the economy of San Diego. But also, as somebody who spent 20 years in the Navy, I also know the importance of the actual military members, the men and women in uniform, and the important role that they play in our community here. When you think about it, they actually serve our country twice, both in uniform, but also as members of our community, coaching soccer and Little League, being part of the PTA. They do a lot that's very important for the individual communities and neighborhoods that they live in. And now that I've been with SeaWorld for the last about a dozen years, I'm very proud to work for a company that not only appreciates the service and the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform, but also has the ability to show that appreciation. And over the last 12 years, we've had a complimentary program that has allowed more than 2 million military members and their families to come and spend a day at SeaWorld for free. And I'm really excited that this year we're also extending that program to our veterans. So this year, veterans and 3 members of their family or guests can also get into the park for free. So again, it's really great to move from the military into a company that not only appreciates the service and sacrifice of our men and women, but is able to put their money where their mouth is. And as somebody who's been a long time in San Diego and knows how important the military is to this community, it's nice to know that the military is one important reason why San Diego is America's finest city. So thanks again, Paul, and thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much, Dave. And thanks to SeaWorld San Diego for what they do to support the men and women in uniform as well as our veterans. Before I introduce the people that will be speaking this morning and other folks in the audience, I would like to go over the little format for this morning's press conference. I will introduce each of the guest speakers who will make some introductory remarks concerning the 7th Annual SDMAC Military Economic Impact Study. Our last speaker will be Dr. Lynn Reeser, the principal author of the study, who will brief the highlights of that study. We will then open the floor for Q&A, and I will direct the questions to the appropriate folks. We ask that you please confine your questions to the subject matter at hand. After the general Q&A, our speakers, depending on their availability, may be available for one-on-one comments. I'd like to introduce a couple of folks in the audience. Mr. Rocky Chavez, California 76th Assembly District, is with us. Also, we have a number of other members with the Governor's Council that are with us today. Please recognize them as well. Mayor Kevin Faulconer was elected to serve as the mayor of the city of San Diego following a special election on February 11th, 2014. He was the first serving city council member elected as mayor in 50 years. Prior to being elected, Mayor Kevin Faulconer represented City Council District 2 since 2006. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Faulconer.
Hey, Paul. Thank you, Paul, and good morning. I'm delighted to be here to say a few introductory remarks and to talk about this impact study and what it means to us as San Diegans. And when we think of the United States military, our military servicemen and women and our veterans, it's part of the fabric of who we are as a city and who we are as San Diegans. And today when we talk about how important that is, we're talking about two of the things that I love to talk about, which is our United States military and creating good quality jobs. And I think that's what this report today really means to us here in San Diego. First and foremost, I want to thank SDMAC for producing this report. I also want to thank, of course, the Fermanian Business and Economic Institute at Point Loma Nazarene University, and really, Lynn, for all of your hard work and help as we continue to not only talk about the impact, but one of the things that's important to me as mayor is we do not take this impact for granted. That's part of why we're here today, which is we work together as one region and one voice. Many of us are going to be back in Washington, D.C. Next week. We have meetings on a variety of topics, including at the Pentagon when it comes to our bases and the economic activity that is so important to us here in San Diego. You know, as I said, the military is synonymous with San Diego. Since 1846, we are home to the largest concentration of United States military in the world. Approximately a couple numbers here for you. 1 in every 7 citizens in the San Diego region has a connection to the military in some form or another. And 1 of every 5 jobs here in our region is linked to the military. But it's not just important to our city, obviously, it's important to our entire country. We are strategically important in San Diego to the national security of the United States. We are a centerpiece of that objective as we have the rebalance to the Pacific. We have a very important role to play in this city and in this region. And through this objective, we're going to see the Navy increase its presence here and growth from 49 ships to 80 ships by 2023. That is very good news for this region. And these points just highlight how special the relationship is between the city of San Diego and the United States military. So whether it's the over 100,000 active duty service members, the 8,300 reservists, the 24,000 Department of Defense employees, the 60,000 military and DoD civilian retirees, or the 236,000 veterans in San Diego, military men and servicewomen and our veterans, they are the heartbeat of our city. They are our doctors, our teachers, our lawyers, our Little League coaches, our civic leaders, and our neighbors. Put simply, the United States military is what helps make San Diego America's finest city. So I'm very proud as mayor of the relationship that we have with the United States military. I'm very proud of the men and women every single day who are part of this fabric of our city. And so as we look to the future today and we talk about the report, it's my job, it's all of our job to help promote and protect that investment here in San Diego. And it's an investment that we are very, very proud of. So thank you all for coming today. Thank you again to SD MacPaul and everyone involved for generating this report. And thank you for everybody here, our community partners, who understand how important this relationship is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is now my pleasure to introduce Rear Admiral Mark Rich, United States Navy. Mark's the commander, Navy Region Southwest. Rear Admiral Rich assumed command of Navy Region Southwest in July of this year. Prior to that, he served as commander, Naval District, Washington, D.C. By training a naval flight officer, Rear Admiral Rich also commanded Navy Region Northwest in the Seattle area, as well as Naval Air Station Oceana, Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, Rear Admiral Mark Rich.
Thank you, Paul. Despite 30-plus years of service, I had actually never been stationed in San Diego before 2010. Despite that, I'd always heard, what a great, as you can imagine, with that much time in the Navy, what a great city this was, America's finest city, and it enjoys a fabulous reputation as a great Navy town. And this is where the Pacific Fleet begins. This study underscores both the key contributions that the Navy in San Diego makes to our national security, but also, just as critically, the support and just how critical the support that the city of San Diego and the entire region provides to the Navy and the Marine Corps. This is America's, as you've heard, this is our largest military concentration area, and we're still growing. Operationally, being based in this region has some great advantages. It means our local sailors and Marines have direct access to the Navy's finest training ranges. And having that ready access also means that those sailors and Marines get that high fidelity training they need to be ready when they deploy, but also the local proximity contributes to their quality of life. But economics is really only part of the military impact here in San Diego. We have a very serious responsibility as stewards of some of our nation's most critical resources, and we take that very seriously. And I'm very proud of the Navy Region Southwest's award-winning environmental record, as well as our leadership in terms of energy conservation, water conservation, and alternative energy development. So I want to wrap this up by saying thank you very much to you, Paul, you, Lynn, the entire San Diego Military Advisory Council, the Romanian Institute, and all the partners that helped put this report together. I know it was a huge task, but it's a very worthwhile one, and I know the product is something that both we and the community that we live in will take great pleasure in, and will do a lot for us. So it's very important to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Admiral Rich. Our next speaker is Brigadier General Ted Banta. Brigadier General Banta assumed command of Marine Corps Installations West in August 2014. From August 2012 to July 2014, he served as Commanding General of the 2nd Marine Logistics Group in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Prior to that, he served as the military assistant to the Secretary of the Navy. Ladies and gentlemen, Brigadier General Ted Banta.
Thanks, Paul, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to spend a few moments with you this morning to talk about this great study from the Marine Corps perspective. Kind of segueing from Admiral Rich's comments, I actually had the pleasure and good fortune to have grown up in Point Loma, a few miles away from here. And then I'm on my 3rd tour now in the greater San Diego area. So I think over my lifetime, I've really gained a terrific appreciation for the support that the Navy Marine Corps team receives from the local community. And as we've heard from both the mayor and from Admiral Rich, San Diego has always been a great Navy and Marine Corps town. And the Marine Corps certainly enjoys the long relationship we've shared over our long history here. And in this economic impact study, it's clearly a mutually supporting relationship that benefits everyone. So the San Diego region is really important to the Marine Corps and our operating forces that are assigned here. It's where we train our Marines and hone our combat skills, literally from the mountains to the sea. We have about 1/3 of our combat power in the region, over 55,000 Marines. And with the rebalance to the Pacific, the region takes on an increased importance to the Marine Corps. The infrastructure in the region to support our Marines would be difficult to duplicate anywhere else, from facilities to easily accessible training ranges. The Marine Corps has invested significantly in the region for the long term. As Admiral Rich said, our proximity to other bases, especially the naval bases, is critical to the Marine Corps' combat readiness as it fosters coordination and joint training with our other services. The relationship between our bases and stations and San Diego citizens and businesses is unique and valuable for the quality of life for our Marines and their families. And we called this shared community home, and what a great place to live. Our families live in your communities. Our families shop in your stores. We shop in your stores, and our kids go to San Diego schools. And we're grateful for the support of our training goals and overall mission that San Diego provides. So the annual study done by SD-MAC establishes the mutual benefits that result from the enduring friendship between the Marine Corps and San Diego. It quantifies the economic value in dollars and jobs from this relationship. And it shows in addition to defending our nation, we're a significant economic driver in the region, with all the defense-related activities and spending generating an estimated $45 billion in gross regional product for San Diego in 2015. We are absolutely proud to be part of that and thankful for the support that we receive. So on that note, I'd like to thank SD-MAC and their partners for not only producing this valuable report, but for what you do for the Marine Corps every day. And likewise, I'd like to thank the leadership and the citizens of San Diego for their continued support for our Marines and our families. We absolutely could not do what we do without your support, and we appreciate it. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, General Banta. I should have remembered you are a Point Loma Pointer and I'm a Mission Bay Buccaneer. So, like Ted, I grew up part of my time here and then went off and did a career in the military and was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time and was here when I retired, so I stayed. We are delighted to have with us again this year our good friend and the principal author of the 7th annual SDMAC Military Economic Impact Study, Dr. Lynn Reeser. Lynn is chief economist for the Furmanian Business and Economic Institute at Point Loma Nazarene University. Dr. Reeser has extensive experience in the financial sector, services sector, including 10 years as chief economist of the Investment Strategies Group at Bank of America, and currently serves as a council member of the Economic Advisors for California State Controller John Chang. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Reeser.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning to all of you. First, I'd like to introduce some of the members of our team who are here this morning. Our Executive Director, Kathy Gallagher, our Assistant Director, Paul Gentry, economist Peggy Crane, and our good friend here, our Research Associate, Tom Hale. So this morning really represents the 7th annual report on the status, the state of the state of the military and the whole ecosystem here in San Diego. What is that current status? What is the future in terms of the opportunities and the risk? So in terms of the big picture, the military in San Diego currently accounts for 1/5 of our overall economy. If you look at all of the so-called ripple or multiplier effects, this represents 328,000 jobs. Total personal income in terms of the compensation of all the employees, wages, benefits, and incomes of business proprietors, about $23 billion. And as you heard from the mayor and the general and the admiral, $45 billion in terms of total gross regional product. These are big numbers. The military, despite all of the efforts and the successes in diversification, remains our #1 most important economic center in the county of San Diego. This chart shows the comparison from the estimates we presented to you last year and what the numbers would look like for 2015. In terms of the direct spending impact, you can see that number is held at about $25 billion, although there have been some small changes in terms of the components of that $25 billion. That direct spending number is basically the same. The total number of jobs, however, is now higher than we estimated last year, partly because of some increase in the number of DoD employees who actually are employed in both the active duty and civilian services. But the biggest change you'll note comes in terms of the impact of total output, or so-called gross regional product. This represents the fact that the United States, following the protocol and the practices adopted by countries pretty much throughout the world, now actually includes research and development as part of our total gross domestic product. Previously it had been excluded, and of course, as we know, here in San Diego with SPAWAR, R&D is very important to all of our sectors, including the military. So this has raised the importance of the military's contribution to our output very significantly. And now it's much more consistent with the contribution of jobs. Jobs amount to about 22% of our economy, and the military also now contributes almost that proportion as well. In terms of the channels of spending that we look at the military comes into its effect on the county in various dimensions. It's not just paying active duty members, although that certainly is a large element. You can see here that about 47% of that $25 billion does in fact represent the compensation, all the benefits, the wages that are paid to our Marines, sailors, members of the reserves, civilians, and others. In terms of the second channel, you can see that there is a large amount, about 17%, that is paid through all of the compensation that goes to retirees who worked here as active duty members or civilian employees, as well as veterans. And the final major element, about 37%, represents all of the contracts that are let to companies producing airplanes, unmanned vehicles, building ships, doing construction projects, electronics firms, smaller companies receiving contracts, and also grants, as well as the impact of tourism, as we have graduations throughout the year at MCRD, and also many family members and friends visiting the 133,000 members employed here as members of the military. So those are the different channels, and we feed those all through the economy into the overall impact on the military here in the region. We currently have 133,000 people who are employed directly by the military. That's 50,000 sailors, 51,000 Marines, and I should say that that 50,000 sailors represents about 1 out of every 7 military members in the Navy are here. 1/4 of the Marines are here, about 24,000 civilian workers, and about 8,400 members of the reserves. The 133,000, though, is only the starting point for understanding the overall impact on employment. There are 2 other very important dimensions. First, consider the impact of a contract that's led to a company that gets a construction project on a base. That company will need to hire various subcontractors, hire various tradespeople, various supply chains, buy different types of paint, wood, etc., to build the project. And then the second impact is all related to the consumer spending. All the employees hired by the original contractor, the subcontractor, all the companies along the supply chain will spend a part of their earnings in San Diego. So if you add up all of that effect, that 133,000 direct employment is only the starting point. Rolling it all up, you get that total economic impact that the military is generating 328,000 total jobs, which again represents 22% of the total jobs created in San Diego County. Looking forward, we've talked a lot about the rebalance towards the Pacific, and this is a major initiative that is and will take place. As you all know, the objective is by 2020 to have 60% of the Navy's surface fleet positioned in the Pacific versus an historical average of 50%. We're at about 57% at this point, and it appears that we will reach that goal. And if you look further out, we will see the ramping up of ships based here in San Diego. If you include all the ships by the Coast Guard, the Sea Airlift Command, that are supported by the Navy, that number jumps by almost 50% from a current number of about 57 to 84 by 2023. This will require not only the people to man those ships, but also the people to service those ships, modernize them, supply new electronics equipment, and also even build new ships in the shipyards here. It's important to understand that we have a very complex and integrated ecosystem of the military in San Diego, and all the parts are very tightly integrated. Think of the people, the 133,000 members of the Navy, the Marines, members of the reserves and civilians, all working in close connection. The natural resources that are involved in terms of the fact that we have 2/3 of the air training space here in the region, and as the Admiral suggested, we have the capability to have active training, sea, land, and air all working together. Our position on the Pacific Rim to serve as the center focus for the rebalance of the Pacific area, and finally the network of firms here, the defense firms serving aerospace, shipbuilders, electronics firms, software developers, and all those companies in the supply chain. So finally, in terms of some of the factors impacting the outlook, where we go from here, it is important to understand that although San Diego has diversified significantly over the past 2 to 3 decades, we have a very active biotech sector. overall diversification in a number of areas of technology, marine biology, environmental science, robotics, sports technology, a lot of other sources of new applications and innovation. We have a very active higher education system. We have a very expansive healthcare system, and tourism is very vibrant. And yet the military remains over 1/5 of our total economy. In terms of the outlook for 2016, the outlook is uncertain. Think of the fact that we're only a few days away from the beginning of the new fiscal year and not one single appropriations bill has been passed. At this point, it looks like there could be a continuing resolution, although that's not even certain when that will take place. We have the election year coming up. At this point, there is essentially gridlock on Capitol Hill. And in the background, remember that we have the Budget Control Act as law, which puts caps on defense and non-defense spending, and we could face another round of sequestration. Our best guess at this point is that we will come out essentially flat in terms of the amount of total direct spending, at about $25 billion again next year. But to be truthful, the uncertainties have never been this high. In terms of the role that San Diego plays in our defense strategy, we are a critical cog. We are key to the whole effort to rebalance the Pacific. We are key to the ability to train effectively on the air, land, and sea. We are key in the nation's strategies and priorities in terms of cybersecurity and technology and unmanned vehicles. And we are key in terms of the overall efforts to integrate the forces. San Diego is now truly trapped in the whole conflict between deficit reduction and security risk around the world. Today, we probably face multiple threats that we've never faced before in terms of threats coming from Europe, threats in the Middle East, threats coming from China, other areas in the Asia-Pacific area. And at the same time, we know we have major roadblocks facing us over the next decade in terms of deficits and increases in the debt. Unfortunately, defense is bearing the brunt of many of these deficit reduction cuts, and San Diego will be in the balance. Overall, because we are such a critical cog in the defense strategy of this country, San Diego should be insulated relatively well if there are to be significant budget cuts. But budget decisions are often political decisions, which means that by no means are we invincible, and by no means should we take the great support we have from the military in San Diego for granted. Thank you very much.